We're good. So good afternoon. I'm Paul Markle, the Executive Director of the Barrie Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to thank you for joining us today for our session on eliminating pain from the workplace. For the ladies here at the Chamber, that's they're hoping that means to get rid of me, but I don't think that's what we're actually talking about. In the end, we'd also like to start today's session with a land acknowledgement. In keeping with Indigenous protocol and building respectful relations between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in Canada, it's customary to acknowledge the traditional territories and ancestral lands of the Indigenous peoples. The Barrie Chamber acknowledges that this sacred land on which we operate has been the site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the ancestral land of the Wendat and the Anishinaabe Nation. Treaties were signed for this particular parcel of land are the Williams Treaty, Robinson Superior Treaty number 60, Penetanguishene Purchase number 5, and then the Nottawasaga Purchase number 18. We're dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture, and we also recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land. We're committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Miigwech. So in the last 9 months, we've seen a massive influx of occupational pain and discomfort due to increased demand of virtual workplaces and increased time sitting at a computer. I can attest to that. The way I'm sitting, the way that wasn't built for Zoom. And imagine everyone else is very much the same. Finally have the freedom to work from home. This offers a bit more flexibility to take breaks, have a bit more control in the schedule and personal care and exercise. But I don't think that always happens. So it seems that most people aren't taking full advantage of the new work situation. And This is why ComPhysio created an Eliminate Pain at Work webinar. So in less than 60 seconds, you can apply these tips and tactics throughout your day from the comfort of your home office, probably from your workplace as well, as long as there's no nudity involved. That's been a problem throughout the pandemic, but if it's an exercise, I think you can probably pretty much do it anywhere. So with us today is Tom Swales from ComPhysio. Tom is a practicing physiotherapist and strength coach with a particular focus on human movement. Founder and creator of Advanced Movement Therapist, AMT, a series of workshops for health professionals looking to improve their treatment techniques and simplify their practices. He's also the owner of ComPhysio in Barrie, a physiotherapy and performance wellness facility where people go to get their pain resolved or solved. So we're going to have about a 30-minute presentation. I'm going to hand it over to Tom in a second, and then we're going to come back to the Q&A. So if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom so that we can put them in. Try to avoid putting them in chat. Chat will be open, but we like to keep the questions in the Q&A. It just makes it easier for us as we go through. And with that, if you have any issues with your Zoom platform, send a note in the chat or exit and rejoin, and we'll be watching to make sure you come back in. And again, if you've once we've got some questions in here, we'll start to queue them up. So with that, I'm going to pass this on to Tom. Tom, welcome. And
thanks, Paul.
Mike is yours.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Hey, everybody. So as Paul said, my name is Tom Swales. I'm a physiotherapist. I'm just going to share my screen here in Barrie. And I put together a presentation in which a lot of us can take action and put our pain relief strategies into our own hands. Just because we feel discomfort in our body doesn't mean something is wrong, but we need to realize what is going on in our body in the first place. So I created 8 strategies to eliminate pain in the workplace, and it literally takes 60 seconds. You don't need a ton of time, and you don't even need that much space. So we're going to walk through it, and this is an interactive webinar. So in the chat box, we like to have people put up, this made I can touch my toes, my neck pain is gone, or my shoulders are moving better. So in the beginning of the webinar, we're going to do a self-assessment. So if you've got a little bit of space to move around, we're going to touch our toes, we're going to back bend, move our shoulders around, and then even just check the neck. And then every time we apply one of these techniques, you're going to go back and recheck, oh, my neck feels a little bit looser. Oh, I can touch my toes. And realize what your nervous system needed in that moment. Because the cool thing with the nervous system is when we apply something it likes or it feels safe, it lets the brakes off. It's a protective mechanism. When we apply something it doesn't like, it locks up, it feels tight, it shuts muscles down, it creates this discomfort, right? And the discomfort is to take action. So my wife and I, Kylie, we own Concept of Movement Physiotherapy in Barrie. We just rebranded to ComPhysio to kind of lessen and shorten the word. It's a long word. We have 2 children and a dog. and I've taken a bunch of education courses over my career and have, I think, accumulated enough to really understand how the mind and the body works together. So a little bit of housekeeping. So as a disclaimer, this is not medical advice for any specific conditions. This information is for general purpose only. No therapist or patient relationship has been established with this. Don't feel obligated to do any of the movements if you're uncomfortable or unsure. Post your questions, like Paul said, in the Q&A. Engage in the chat box. Let us know how you're feeling. Let us know what's changed. Okay, this is a live interactive workshop, and we want to see real-time change. And then this is what we usually set all the chat to panelists and attendees, so everybody can see what everyone is saying. So some of the key objectives and takeaways. We're going to know the difference between pain and discomfort, because a lot of the times people don't have another word for what they're feeling, and it always ends up pain. But when we say pain all the time, it can set off alarms in our nervous system to over-exaggerate or over-amplify the feelings of discomfort. We're going to improve our self-awareness through self-assessment, and this is where we're using movement as our form of self-assessment. So we're going to check how the neck is moving, the shoulders, and how the spine is moving. So we'll go through something that's called the Global Movement Scan, and you can get that at tomswales.com. And then we're going to just keep it really, really simple. I will talk a little bit technical, but I will translate it quickly so you can use the information and better explain it to your friends and family later. And it's easy, actionable strategies that only take 60 seconds, and you will move better after. So what's my goal? To teach and empower people to manage their health and well-being, to create better self-awareness through self-assessment, to make it simple for people to treat themselves. And the best way to do that is through movement. So we don't need to see everybody who has these little tight muscles and whatnot. It's very easy to manage on your own. When it becomes an injury or it's something you can't self-manage, then that's when we want to see you, because there might be something a little bit more underlying. But a lot of things you can take care of yourself. And when you have that power, you've got that knowledge and that empowerment. So knowing the difference between pain and discomfort. Pain is an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with or resembling that associated with actual potential damage. This is a formal definition of pain. It does expand into more context and some etymology. You can look at that on the pain website. And then discomfort is an absence of comfort or ease, uneasiness, hardship, or mild pain. So basically anything that is disturbing or interfering with your homeostasis or your state of comfort. Now, with the pandemic, we know that this has become a lot of our normal realities. People are working more from home at remote workstations than ever before. Over 50% of the workforce has moved to some kind of remote or hybrid model. People have the option to move more at home, but they don't take the opportunity, and they're actually moving less. And I think it's because, you know, the environment isn't there, the lack of routine, the unable to go to the gyms, the unable to associate your environment to exercise, and just the lack of equipment. So then people just stack all these Zoom meetings one after another. There's no opportunity to get up. All right, I'm going to walk to this meeting. I'm going to get up and go get my coffee. It's just boom, boom, boom. So now we even though we have the opportunity and the freedom to get on the floor and do some stretches, we don't do it. And it's causing more of a problem than ever. So we can see we're doing all kinds of like massage tools and ergonomic assessment. And then, you know, I have clients who, somebody comes in and they said their desk all perfect. Okay, all these angles are great, feels great. This is reducing the amount of stress on the spine. You know, people are getting the treadmill desks, which are pretty cool. And then having the option to stand up. But here's the problem. Our posture, as soon as I say that dirty word posture, everyone, changes. Everyone's like, a little bit more aware of it. And then after you get moving, it ends up like this again. Right after you end up doing it for a while and getting busy with your work, we all end up like looking like this guy. So posture is really the physical representation of the organized input from our internal and external environment. So what does that mean? It's how we feel on the outside versus how we feel on the outside. So surfaces, objects, temperatures, all our external inputs. And if we're too cold, what do? We kind of bundle up. If we're too hot, we kind of open up, but then we kind of slouch or recline. If we are happy, we sit a little taller. When we're sad, we get a little bit lower. So it's really this mixture of inputs, but it's really a lack of external stimulation that paralyzes our movement literacy. and affects our overall well-being. So if we do any of these things enough times, it will cause a problem. We could say that, well, lifting too many heavy weights too often and not doing enough stretching or cardio, yeah, it will cause some problems. Doing too much running, it will cause some problems. Doing too much stretching with not enough strengthening, that will cause problems. Athletes get into just as many problems as desk workers because they're doing too much of one thing too long, and you end up sacrificing overall health and performance. Okay, so how do we eliminate discomfort from the workplace? The solution is simply just add more brain input. When we can stimulate the brain and the senses and the reflexes, the body responds very, very quickly. We run basically on reflexes from birth, and then as we gain higher levels of control, then they're not really on the forefront anymore, but they are still there. So if we know how to tap into these old reflexes, we can start to switch on parts of our brain and our bodies that automatically work, like posture. One philosophy that we have at Concept of Movement is give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. We teach everybody who comes into our clinic so that you don't need us, okay? It's not just passive treatment, stick a needle on this, do an ultrasound, do a manip, do some soft tissue release, and off you go. Those are resets. That changes the input around the area of pain. But if we don't teach you how to move differently, if we don't teach you how to move better, guess what? It comes back, which is why people feel good for about a day or two, maybe 3, and then all of a sudden, oh, that thing is back. Has anyone taught you how to move differently? Has anyone given you exercises or stretches to keep that locked into place? Because your brain is just defaulting to what it knows, and it knows the old crappy patterns. So we're going to go through a self-assessment, and this is just moving stuff. We're just setting a baseline to see if there's change and to bring some self-awareness. So this is the part where everybody can, if you can stand up out of your desk, great. We're just going to do some simple neck flexion. See if you can get your chin down to your chest, touch it, any tension. Can you look up towards the ceiling? Any pinchiness going on in there? Rotation, can you get your chin to your collarbone? And you're just making note of, oh, that kind of feels tight or pinchy. Shoulder flexion, all we're doing is just lifting the arms straight up overhead. We can do shoulder extension. You can bend forward and touch your toes. Paul, that looks excellent. Good job. And then just back bend. So you're just going to stand up and lean backwards, okay? See how far you can get. Here's some pictures of what I'm talking about here, okay? Shoulders moving up to the side. Can you touch your toes? Yes or no? Neck and back bends. And you're just making note of anything pinchy or tight. And I use the quote tight because things usually aren't tight, but they're toned up. If you want to look at a full video of this, you can head over to my website. You'll have the links in the to this later, but it just walks you through the whole global movement scan. Now, the first reflex that we're going to go through is breathing. Why? Because it's the first thing we do when we come to this world. Baby's born, what does it have to do? It's got to take a breath. But if you watch every baby, babies breathe through their belly automatically. Most of us, we breathe like this all day long. And this causes a lot of stress in our system. Somewhere down the road, whether it's bad posture, injury, muscle imbalances, don't care. Some reason we start to breathe into our shoulders. Now, the first part of breathing is, where are we breathing into? So I want everyone to place one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, and just breathe into your nose and make note of which hand is moving, okay? Is it the top hand and we're doing this, or is it the bottom hand and the belly's coming out? Okay, so what should happen is the belly should lift and there should be little to no movement happening up here. If I'm breathing like this all day, people come into my office, my neck is so tight. I'm like, no kidding. You're using your neck muscles to help you breathe all day. Well, you take 25,000 breaths a day. So now you're doing 25,000 shrugs. No wonder your traps are so huge and toned up, because that's the muscle you're using. The diaphragm is supposed to be the breathing muscle. Everything else is supposed to be relaxed. So bringing awareness to how we're breathing through the nose, out through the mouth. I prefer in the nose, out the nose, okay? Noses are for breathing, mouths are for eating. If you're breathing through your mouth, it's going to encourage this apical breathing pattern and it's going to set off a stress response. When we breathe through our mouth, it's sending a signal to the brain saying, hey, we got to over-oxygenate here in case we got to run away from tigers so we don't get eaten. When we breathe through our nose, it automatically switches our nervous system to rest and digest, stay calm. Okay, let's take some slow breaths and not breathe out so quickly. So nasal breathing, relaxation, 3 seconds in, pause for 1 second, 6 seconds out. And you can do out through the mouth or out through the nose. Okay, let's do this 3 times. Everybody together, 3 in, pause, 6 out. Okay, 1 more. And out. Now I want everybody to stand up, try a toe touch, see what happens. Okay, pop it, throw it up in the chat box and see what works for everybody. Okay, do your back bend, see if there's immediate change. If you are stressed out, this will change your nervous system in the right direction. If you've been hyperventilating and your brain is running all over the place, this will cause a change. Now, if you're low on energy and we need to boost our chi, or we need to bring up our energy, we can do a Sufi technique. And it's all it is you're going to take 3 to 4 short inhales through the nose. So it's, so you're sniffing, you're hyperventilating, you're hyperinflating the lungs, and it's a inhale, sniff, and do it 1 more. And what this does is it changes the carbon dioxide and oxygen balance, and you'll really feel alert. If you do this enough times, you will feel lightheaded. So make sure you're doing this sitting down and you don't hit your head off anything. Cool. Who's got some changes there? Awesome. All right. The next thing, we're going to look at the eyes. Now, the eyes are important because it takes up 80% of your brain's energy. So when we feel tired, where do we feel it? Oh, my eyes, they just feel like they want to close. Because your eyes are constantly scanning the environment. They're constantly filtering light. They're filtering information. They're looking for threats. But when the brain, that takes up 25% of the total body's energy, starts to get tired, you feel it in the eyes first. And a lot of the fatigue that people get eye strains because we're fixed. Our eyes are stuck on a screen all day. Our eyes are designed to move through a really, really big range of motion, side to side, up and down, but we don't do it. We sit on phones, they move in a short range, and then all the muscles in the eyes, they start to spasm and fatigue, but it doesn't stimulate the brain. When we move our eyes side to side, it's called saccades, you're creating this signal in the brain to pay attention, and also it stimulates the part of the brain that creates movement. It's called the cerebellum. The cerebellum is about 50%, it's 10% of total mass, but it's 50% of all the neurons. So it is very, very important, and it controls all the movement, and it's integrated with our eyes, our ears, our neck, our jaws, lots of other structures, and we need to stimulate it. And the only way to do that is with a lot of novelty. So everybody, if you want to stand up, you can do some quick eye flicks. You can stack the breathing on top of it. So you're just going to go thumbs out like this, and you're just going to flick your eyes left to right as fast as you can. You can go up and down. Okay, so this quick eye flicking is stimulating the brain. Now, what they found at Dr. Andrew Huberman's lab, he's a neuroscientist in Stanford, is when you walk and you do, when you're walking outside, your eyes are constantly scanning the environment. And when you apply this saccadic flicking, it actually calms down the amygdala, which is the stress response brain. So when we're moving with forward movement and these eye movements, we're actually creating, anticipating stress. But because of that forward movement, it actually calms down the stress response. It's very, very interesting. So, and then the other one, so that's to stimulate the brain. If you want to calm the brain, take your thumb and bring it and follow it in. It's called convergence. This stimulates what's called the third cranial nerve. And if you think about holding a baby, we got something up close like this. Our eyes converge on the target and it calms the system. When we look in a distance, when the eyes diverge, we're looking for threats. That's a very stimulating part of the system, okay? So it really depends. So try some convergence and then try a toe touch, or try some saccadic flicks and try a toe touch. Pop up, let us know what changed for you. Whoops. Cool. All right, number 3, bouncing or tapping. So this, when I first found out about tapping, it seemed silly. And then later, when I found out the mechanism of how it affects neurology and how it affects structures in our body, being kind of these crystalline structures of fascia and bones and whatnot, it starts to make sense. And they did a study where when you tap on certain acupuncture points, it calms down that amygdala again. So in Qigong, there's this, it's called, they call it tapping or beating on the heavenly drum. So what you can do is you can cover your ears. You can see the gentleman in the one picture, he's covering his ears, and you're just going to tap the back of the head with your fingertips. Okay, so you cup the ears, you can take some breaths with it. And what the reports are in traditional Chinese medicine increases mental clarity, visual acuity, relieves tinnitus, lots of other stuff. But what we know from a physiology and neurology perspective is we're tapping on the visual system as well as the cerebellum. And the vibration is causing relaxation in the nervous system. That's it. It's just applying an input that feels good. We can do local stuff. If you got some tight muscles, tapping on the muscles, you're stimulating acupuncture channels and points, but you're stimulating the bones as well as the muscles underneath. So vibration is very, very important to the body. And walking barefoot, you get that natural vibration because of the heel hits. So what you can also do, and I'll stand up, is you can bounce on your heels just up and down like this, and that creates a pulse from the bottom up, okay? So we can tap from the top down and we can pulse from the bottom up. So everyone try some muscle tapping, try some heel bouncing, try some drum beating, and then see what happens to your mobility. What is your movement telling you? Movement is your gateway into your nervous system to know if it liked something or if it didn't. Cool. Number 4, create some circles. So joint circles, when we move our joints through space, we're improving what's called proprioception or body awareness. Our brain's just like, oh, we're waking up little receptors in the joints. I'm aware of where that joint is in space now. It increases blood flow, reduces tension in tight muscles because we're working through the full range of motion. When we lock joints into fixed positions for too long, the receptors don't get input. Blood doesn't get into the muscles. What does that do? Ooh, I don't like this. I'm just going to create tightness. I'm going to lock stuff down and protect it because it doesn't like to move or it's not used to moving. So when we do something simple like rotating our wrists, creating neck circles, just don't go into any pinchy zones. We can move in through the spine and the shoulders, right? We can sit at our desk. We can just do some big shoulders. Standing up is better, of course. We can do it through the hips and the knees and the spine. So just very simple. Pretend you're like a little power down robot and you're just going to move through the spine. And stack in some breathing. You can work on some visual stuff. Just simply doing circles, moving joints around, moving stuff will change the nervous system input. It will probably like it as long as you don't go into pinchy pain zones, and your movement and your body will start to feel good. So we're applying those inputs. And with circles, anything joint circles, the cerebellum really likes that. Number 5, isometrics. Many times people come in, they're like, oh, I sit at my desk all day, my neck is so tight. But then I look at their range of motion and they have these very flexible, floppy necks. And I ask them, I'm like, it's probably not a stretching problem because you already have very long muscles. But what it might be is a strength problem. If we aren't moving the joints and testing the muscles and strengthening the muscles through full range. If we overstretch a muscle, we're technically weakening it. We're creating this degree of instability, meaning we've created this range of weakness. And now the nervous system has picked that up. And guess what it does to the muscle? Shortens it back up, saying, no, I'm not going to let you go there because you might hurt me. But if we add some strength in through the muscles, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, we just created some control. And the nervous system says, oh, we have strength here. I'm going to let that go. So if you can't get your chin to your chest, do some pressing some tension into your hands on both the front and the back. Watch that let go. If you get a pinch in the neck by looking up, which I tend to get, all I do is put my hands behind my head, push my hands, and all of a sudden the range of motion frees up. So you get this thing called reciprocal inhibition. When we create tension on one side, we create relaxation on the other. You can do this for any muscle group, even just in the pecs. Press the hands together. People come in, oh, my pecs are so tight. I'm like, they're not tight because the range is good. Maybe if you add some tension in them, they'll learn to relax in these far ranges. And 9 times out of 10, they do, okay? You can do wall squats. You can just do a squat hover out of your chair. Just applying some tension through major muscles or just muscles in general starts to wake them up, okay? Who likes isometrics? Everybody, awesome. All right, so number 6, self-massage and soft tissue work. So this is where we can use our tools, our lacrosse balls, foam rollers, and applying them to simple areas like the hands and the feet. Again, you can do this at your desk. All I gotta do is take my massage ball and I can just roll it through the hands. Now the hands and the feet, they have a large area in the motor and sensory cortex. So they have a big representation. So when you stimulate the hands or you work on the hands, the nervous system starts to relax. Again, apply the inputs, check your toe touch, check your back bend, see what works for you. It could be one thing, it might be a stack of a few things. You can apply this anywhere. Again, pecs feel tight, just give it a little bit of tension and see what happens. A lot of the times it's just like, that's all it needed. It didn't need a big manual therapy technique. It didn't need a needle. It just needed some attention. That's all it needs, okay? Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And if we ignore parts of the body, then those body parts are just going to lock up with tension. When we have tension, there's no blood. When there's no blood, there's no energy. So those tissues will start to atrophy just from a lack, not of just disuse, but just a lack of awareness and paying attention to them. You need to have a good relationship with your body. Okay. Number 7, the desk jockey circuit. So this is a little circuit that I created. It literally takes 90 seconds. So I lied, this one takes 90 seconds. All you need is a mini band like this, okay? Put it around your knees. You can sit in your desk, you can do some clams, you can do some squats, you can do some side steps. And I have some photos here, they were videos. Okay, so if you have a band with you, you're gonna do some seated clams. All you're doing is pinching your feet together and you're opening the knees 10 times. You stand up out of your desk and you side step 10 times. You can do some squats, touch the chair, stand up. And if you have a wall in your office, just do a squat and then just do some scat wall slides. This will sort out a lot of the posture muscles. It wakes up all the big muscles. So it increases blood circulation overall. 90 seconds. And then watch your range of motion change. Watch the tension in your neck change. Even though you didn't really do anything for the neck changes, because if we have tension in our thorax that our neck sits on top or our back, it locks down. The body will protect the spine because it's at the center. But if you can wake up some of the peripheral joints, some of the hips, shoulders, anything around it, the spine muscles start to relax a little bit better because they start to feel safe. So everyone try those little exercises and then pop up in the chat, see what's changed. All right, okay. Number 8. This is where we go back to where we first learned how to move, back to the floor. Working in an office environment, very hard to do this. Working from home and you have a laptop, very easy to do this. We started everything on the floor. Watch babies, they're laying on the floor, they're figuring stuff out, they're setting their core, they're using rolling reflex, they're looking at the visual system, they're stimulating the inner ear and the vestibular system, okay? And then the nervous system gets to a point, it's like, oh, well, you know what, let's go up onto all fours, let's go in sitting and then start to stand. But if we can go back to the floor, we can ameliorate any and most issues, tight hips, poor spine posture, because when you sit on the floor, you have to sit upright. You have to keep good posture. Look at the pictures here. If you're sitting in a V-sit or sitting cross-legged on the floor, it's very hard to slouch. Now the individual on the computer, he's leaning up against the wall, but most of the time you got to sit up tall. If you slouch, you fall over. So you have to use your posture muscles to keep you upright to some degree. And what this also does is it helps stretch the hips. So when we sit on the floor, you can probably do a position for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And then guess what? It gets uncomfortable. Well, what do we do when we get uncomfortable? We move. The discomfort that you feel is a signal for change. The discomfort that we feel is the nervous system saying, you know what, time to change position. These tissues have had enough. Let's change it up. The problem with a lot of ergonomic setups is it creates a lot of comfort. And when we have comfort, we're not getting those discomfort signals to make a change. So now we have the ability to sit at a desk for 2 to 3 hours straight without any discomfort. And all of a sudden, when we go to move, my back, everything's locked down. because you haven't moved enough regularly to offset the static posture that you are doing. So it's a double-edged sword. We create these things of comfort to allow us to do more of it, but when we do more of it, it causes orthopedic and physical health problems. So coming back down to the floor, excuse me, can help correct some of these issues. So everyone check your work, everyone do your toe touch, everyone check your neck, check your shoulders, check your back bend. Who saw a change in their movements? Throw it up in the chat. I'd like to see if anyone's seen anything cool happen. Doing this webinar in the past, people are just like, I can touch my toes. I haven't been able to do this in 10 years, which is really, really cool because it shows them that nothing was truly tight. It was just a lack of input or a lack of safety perceived by the nervous system. Okay, so we can get into some questions. Okay, so in closing, too often clients come in thinking they are broken and helpless because of what they have been told or what they believe. You don't need someone to fix you. You just need to be guided on how to help and fix yourself. The discomfort you feel is not damage, but a signal for change and to move. You're not broken. You can fix yourself. You just have to listen to your body. And finding the right guide will show you how to do it. Okay, so what's next? So everyone in attendance, let me just close this chat box, will receive a copy of the slides of the webinar. They will receive a cheat sheet that we will email out to everybody. So there will be more details on more than just the slides. It will be a Word document of all the information on how to keep doing these things. And then if you have specific questions regarding chronic long-term pain, discomfort, suffering from painful or old injuries, give our office a call, okay? If a lot of the strategies that we use did not take care of some of the pain or discomfort, there might be something underlying that needs to be formally assessed to find out what the real problem is. So you can give us our office a call. I'm gonna leave this up while we answer questions. I'll come back to this. And then if you want more free education, you can head over to my personal website, tomswales.com. There's lots of free articles, video tutorials. Instagram is swales.tom and Facebook is Swales Performance Systems. And that is it.
That was awesome. It's funny. In my youth, I was fairly athletic. I played football. I played rugby. I swam, 4 hours a day. Then I discovered beer. And college and lack of exercise, and you grow older and you get away from that kind of stuff. So pain and that kind of stuff that would be easy to equate to some sort of a physical activity. Now there's no physical activity that should be causing pain, and you're sore still. And it's a big box of darkness, especially when you're sitting at work like I am now. I'm cockeyed because of my desk shape and where I got to get this stuff in, and I'm winding up working in that position all the time. And a lot of the movements you were talking about and showing are literally things that you do every day to kind of make yourself feel better because you're just sore, right? I mean, so to kind of equate that to, what's going on within your body. But yeah, I could feel the difference. I mean, I generally can't touch my toes, but there's other reasons for that. So getting down there and touching them was great. I've had a tendency of passing out, tying my shoelaces. So it'd be nice to be able to do that without that outcome. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. There's some questions in here, so we'll go through those. But I like the simple fact that you can do this stuff pretty much anywhere. I didn't have a lot of space here, but it's something I could simply do really easily, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and the shifting kind of fidgeting that people do, that's a natural response. Sleeping, we're supposed to be moving around in our sleep a lot, okay? The Posturepedic and the comfy mattresses that we now have, again, it's something that discourages us from moving, but we're designed to be sleeping on a firmer surface like the earth. And when we sleep on our side or position, it gets uncomfortable after about 10, 15 minutes. So what does the subconscious brain do? It tells you to move. Well, when you're moving, you're massaging all the spine muscles. When you're moving lymphatic fluid and you're moving waste, you're moving blood. But when we are stuck on these, pillow top mattresses and we're kind of collapsed and caved in and we can't move all night, people wake up in the morning like everything hurts. Well, because you haven't moved for 8 hours.
Yeah.
We are designed to be constantly moving. We are not designed by nature to be sitting for hours or standing for hours on end. Every 15, 20 minutes, you'll get that signal for, oh, you know what, it's time to change your position. That's why we do these little spinal fidgets, because we need to stimulate the muscles. Because if we don't stimulate the muscles, we sit on the ligaments and the discs. Now all of a sudden, oh, I've got disc herniations. Well, because you've been compressing discs and not using muscles for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then you do that for the next 20 years.
It's very true. I'm one of those guys, I just can't get comfortable.
Yep.
It doesn't matter where I'm in, unless I'm in a hard chair, believe it or not. I'm more comfortable at the kitchen table in a hard chair sometimes than I am sitting on the couch. And I think it's because I'm so used to being, slouchy all the time that it sort of forces you to sit up straight. So
the comfortable chair, what does it do? What does it encourage your muscles to do? Relax.
Yeah.
I'll take care of this. No problem.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden things now feel awful.
Well, you're not helping any of the sleep country guys or the furniture guys out, but that's okay.
I do make recommendations, but I tell people, I'm not telling people to sleep on the floor, but I am telling people to lean more into more of the firm mattresses.
Yeah.
And if you're not used to it at first, but once people have moved over to a firmer mattress, people start to really notice huge differences in their sleep, their body, aches and pains. It's just a little bit of
I went from a soft to a firm, and I'm a lot happier with it. Anyways, let's get into a couple of questions here, and generated from inside. One with a really simple question: is there a minimum age to visit physio?
Nope.
I say that babies need physio sometimes because they get out of alignment. I mean, I think it's all ages.
Yep. No. I see. I've seen babies 6 months. And then we have clients who are 90 and they're in the gym lifting kettlebells and walking across 2x4s. So it's a wide variety. It's just the individuals who are motivated and who want to know and learn about themselves and to take care of themselves better. That's really the clientele that we tend to attract, because
Right.
we have the manual therapy and manipulation and acupuncture, IMS, all that cool stuff. But we use that as a reset to allow tissues to move, but then we teach you how to move on top of that.
Cool. Okay.
Yep.
Question here, there was a couple of them, so I eliminated one about, do I need a doctor to refer me for physio, or can I just sign myself up?
Most you don't. Most insurance plans, you don't need a doctor's note anymore. Okay. So it's find out through your local insurance, but most of them now you can go straight to physio.
Good. And I mean, physio, you always equate that with an injury, but that's not necessarily the way you should be thinking about physio, correct?
Yeah, because our scope of practice is prevention. And if something feels not right, you need to find out, either you need to find resources to help correct it, or educate yourself on what is kind of optimal versus not optimal. So most people think that, I can turn my head, but I don't have pain, but you're supposed to be able to turn it 90 degrees to one side. And if you can't turn it, you might be shredding down a shoulder. So it's being educated as to know, here's where you want to move, so we can prevent things from being damaged later. If we can stop an injury, we'd rather do that, because it's a lot easier to prevent something than it is to fix something.
Yeah. I think as well, I mean, you find now that people are kind of relying on physical, activity to relieve some of the stress of all the things that have been going on during COVID. I mean, they're trying to help with their own mental, but then they're exercising and using muscles they haven't used for years and finding that they're injuring them. So I imagine you're probably seeing a fair amount of that coming into your office as well recently.
Yeah, and there's lots of great resources, but everyone's body's different, and squatting for one person might not be a great idea to squat for another. Like, I might need to say, you know what, a deadlift or a hip hinge is probably a better option. You're still going to work a lot of the same muscles, but with your ankles or with whatever, let's not do a back squat, because that can cause some problems. And having a full assessment to find out what your joints are doing, where you might need to do a little bit more specific work on certain body parts before you start doing larger compound movements is only going to be helpful. Because if you got a hip that's jammed up on the right and it's moving freely on the left, well, when you squat down, guess where you're going to shift all that weight into? The left side, because guess what? Energy moves to the area of least resistance. Now you're just like, my left knee's killing me. Yeah, but your right hip doesn't move.
Right. Right.
So you just loaded up that left knee 500 times because of an imbalance.
Yeah, cause and effect kind of thing. I
Yeah.
know chiros will always talk about your nervous system and spine angle and your posture, all these different things. Like them, I think the thought process is that if I go, I'm going to wind up going every week, and I can't afford that. But I think
Yeah.
your goal mostly is to give a treatment plan and things that they can do at home. You don't necessarily want them in the office all the time. You just want them, working on something. So that, I think that's a common misnomer with working with physios for sure.
Yeah, because we want clients to not need us. That's not everyone's business model, but that's ours.
Yeah.
It's good business to have repeat customers, but we want people getting out, living their life, not having to come into an appointment every week or every 2 weeks. Go out and do something. Like it's the enjoyment is people actually getting better and graduating.
Yeah. Along those lines, a question here: if you feel, even if you feel like you don't need physio, but want to learn more about your body and think you can get something out of it, would you still recommend coming in if you're curious?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because we're gonna we're gonna assess nervous system. We're gonna assess nervous tissue. We're gonna assess the joints, muscles, muscle testing, all these things. And if there's a couple little things that we can make a little bit better, hey, here's some homework. Great, incorporate these with your general exercise. And if you're good, you're good.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be complex, but it's the same thing. Like, do you take your car in to get serviced once in a while and checked up? Usually.
Yeah.
Right. We go see our doctor on a regular basis for physicals. Yep. So why not look at your body as as this finely tuned, very complex machine that is constantly changing, even with age, of course, and find out, okay, alignment's a little bit off. We need to sort this out before it becomes an injury.
Right.
There's no difference. We do all these screening tools, so we have all these things to screen out disease, but lack of movement is a disease, right? People sitting is causing so much health issues that now it just transfers over to the other side of healthcare.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of questions. This one's a bit more technical or specific. So I often get a rib that moves out of place. It's very painful. Are there stretches or exercise I can do for this?
Yeah, there's lots. But again, when we have a rib that kind of pops out, it's hypermobile, right? So it's not the fact that, I need to get it popped back into place. It's, do the ribs on the other side move? Maybe you have a rib flare, maybe a neck isn't moving, maybe a hip's not rotating. And again, that rib it's the symptom, but not usually the cause. So energy is moving into that rib and popping that out. We got to find out why.
Right.
So I do have a video on my YouTube. It's called the pop rib video correction. It's been helping a lot of people just kind of doing it on their own and kind of walking people through how to assess and how to correct. But if it's a pop rib, you got to find out why. Why does that rib keep popping out? What is it you're doing to cause that? Symptom versus cause, two totally different things. Pain is usually a symptom, but the cause is usually someplace else in the body.
Yeah, very good point. I always equate ribs with something different. I have a Traeger, so I always perk up when I hear ribs, but that's just me.
Yep.
Not a question, but I wanted to share my takeaway. So discomfort equals move your body. It was a great share, so thank you very much. That came from Kim Miller. And I think you're right. If you're not feeling comfortable, there's something wrong, do something about it. Get up and move. Yeah,
get up and move. Make it simple.
Very simple.
Do something and see what happens.
Yeah.
Did it feel better or feel worse? If you did something wrong, guess what the nervous system's going to do? It's going to make it feel worse. It's going to lock you up. If it felt good, if it felt safe, nervous system like, yep, I'll let that go now.
Awesome. Forcing with your desk setup more important? Okay, good question here. Is forcing movement with your desk setup more important than an ergonomic setup in the long run?
An ergonomic setup, if you have a desk job and it's unavoidable, yeah, like an ergonomic assessment will be helpful. But then it's also, if you're eliminating a lot of the discomfort coming from staying put for too long, that's where it becomes unhelpful. So again, the ergonomic setup is going to eliminate some of the discomfort, but now you have to set different reminders as to when to move. So it might be a timer now, every 20 minutes. Oh, got to do an exercise. Because you've buffered or you've eliminated that signal of discomfort, you have to set up another reminder, or else you just get lost in work. And all of a sudden time flies by and your body's now screaming at you when you try and get up.
Yeah. One of the things that my phone or my watch reminded me, but while you were going through it in the breathing exercise, using an app sometimes to remind you as well, that little buzz on your wrist, close your circles, use the breathing app. I find those things are actually fairly helpful. But just that subconscious reminder, oh yeah, I got to stand up. I think they implementing that stuff, whatever makes it happen for you, I think is good.
Yep.
Trying to implement a healthy living trying to implement healthy living team building within my team at work. Every time I met with resistance, any suggestion to get them on board. We tried yoga, thought it would be fun, but nobody else wished to participate. Brought in a dietitian so they could freely access, but nobody used them. Any thoughts or suggestions there?
You know, a presentation like this is helpful because if everyone's at their desk, there's no excuse. You can say, look, everyone's attending this at 1 o'clock today.
Yeah.
And everyone has to attend. Like you can make something like that. And nobody needs to use the excuse of travel or going here or going there. And the more barriers you can remove, the more compliance people will have. I'll even have clients be like, oh, I can't do my exercise at work. Okay, great. What's your workstation setup? What kind of room? Okay, we're going to do this instead. Every time you get out of your desk, you're going to do this. Oh, because now I've set the trigger and the reminder in the environment. So now I have to create the new habit.
Right.
So it's getting those kind of three things in line to create a change in somebody's behavior. And behavior change is very hard because humans will just try and conserve as much energy as possible. That is just how we're designed.
Sure.
And any resistance will find a reason not to do it, especially if we don't like it or we don't think it'll help.
Yeah.
And until we created that new habit, like brushing our teeth, where if you're like, oh, I haven't brushed my teeth today, my mouth feels gross.
Yeah.
What do you do? I gotta go brush my teeth. It's the same thing. It just takes some time and some repetition to create that new habit.
Yeah. Good.
It might be a language thing. It just might be a perspective thing. It just might be, hey, how do we remove barriers? Because trying to encourage somebody to go to yoga, you got to drive to the yoga studio. All right, now I got to get changed. All right, now I got to put my stuff on. Now I got to lay here for an hour. Okay, now I got to get dressed. Like that's 2 hours.
Yeah.
Some people don't have 2 hours. So I'm like, fine, do 10 squats every hour. As soon as you get out of your chair, 10 squats. Now you got up 8 times in a day. You just did 80 squats.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a really good point. I'm looking at this and thinking there's an embarrassment factor. These are all things that are done as a group and they're competitive.
Yes.
What you're doing in the office here is very non-competitive. It's for you, and you do it discreetly. So maybe that's the start, and then as people feel better, then you can introduce those other components into it. So.
And just I make it 60 seconds. That's why I set these up as 60 seconds. 60 seconds. You got 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And now some people are just like, oh, you know what? 60 seconds make me feel really good. I'm going to do 2 minutes. 2 minutes feels really good. I'm going to make it 5.
Yeah.
You know what? I did 5. 10 probably feels really good.
Yeah.
What's the mentality of society? More is better.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Got 2 questions in here. I think we should maybe ask one and then we'll go from there. They're both similar. So when I was at school, I could write by hand for as long as needed. Now my hand cramps within minutes because I'm usually on the keyboard. Do you have any stretches I can do to warm up for my hand? Warm my hand up for note taking. And the other one's related to back-to-back Zoom meetings. So it's similar. I think they're repetitive things, right?
Yeah, so using your lacrosse ball, doing some of the neck isometrics, doing some joint circles, that will affect the hand.
Yeah. Here at the chamber, we have these little stress balls that
Perfect.
You squeeze or whatever, throw it at people. You can do lots of things with them, but
you hit somebody across the room and everybody laughs. Well, guess what? You just created a nice input of laughter, increase blood circulation, oxygenation to the brain, and you just got to think dopamine hit. Because when dopamine goes up, it buffers stress and cortisol.
That's
all right. We all laughed. I can work longer now.
Exactly. And there might be a nice healthy dent on somebody, which is always fun, right? So.
And then you can send them over to us. It's fine. We'll take the dent out.
Well, that was great. I really like that. I think it's appropriate too for sort of what we're at. We're starting to get back into more, socialized events, that kind of thing. I think people are going to be getting back into the gym and exercising. So I think talking about physio, may be appropriate at this point, because you may be seeing people coming in because they are being a bit more active, which is good. So we appreciate you coming today, and hopefully we can do another one moving forward. Maybe there's a different topic we can touch on.
Sure.
I think if it's always about business, that's great, but I think we need to add these other components in which keep things interesting for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're only as productive as how good we feel, right? And if we don't have the energy to do anything, people always say, time is the most valuable thing we have. I'm like, I disagree, because if we don't have the energy, then what are we going to do with the time?
Yeah,
Nothing.
for sure.
So energy is the ultimate currency. And when we have unlimited energy, we actually expand time, because we're more efficient. We think faster. We move better. Yeah. So, it's still linear, of course, but when we're perceiving time for how much we can get done because we have good energy is where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you. And again, we'll explore other opportunities and ways to get involved with one another, and see what we can bring back to the membership.
Sounds great.
So again, in closing, thank you for joining us today, and for what you're doing every day in your business, especially these days, with everything that happened last Thursday. Tensions are up. We've got some businesses and people that are really hurting these days. And I think, again, continuing to make intentional purchasing decisions. We've been highlighting some of the businesses that are still open in that area of our city. Make sure that you're helping them out. They've already been suffering because of COVID. Now they need us more than ever to just go in and shop there, make an intentional purchase, and help them out. It's probably one of the best things you can do without getting in the way of the recovery efforts up there, and still, making a contribution. So the Chamber's here to help you. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to give us a call. I want to remind you that we have our rapid screening initiative. Get your customers and your employees feeling better about coming in by running a rapid screening program in your workplace. It's free, it's fast, and it just adds that little peace of mind to get everybody back to normal faster. We've got a few things coming up in the next little while. Local search marketing, effectively utilizing Google My Business on July 27th at 1 p.m. Chamber Chat Networking on July 28th at noon. Barrie Business Awards call for nominations are open. The deadline is August 6th. So listen, nominate your favorite physiotherapist. Get them into the fray as far as a business award is concerned. And then we have our golf day coming up on September 14th. That's tomorrow. Some excellent packages there, very affordable. We've kept the pricing down again this year to get more people involved and make sure that businesses can come out and have a little bit of fun and not break the bank. We're happy to talk to you about that, and there are sponsorship opportunities still available with that tournament. Golf is one of those things that creates all sorts of stresses and pain points for me. So you never know, I might be knocking on your door to see if I can get the ball another 6 inches out of the woods and onto the fairway. So we'll see what happens.
We're seeing lots of golf aches and pains coming in. Everyone's all excited, but didn't really prep or do much for it, because it's one of those things where you got to be able to move freely, or else tissues are going to get banged up.
Well, that, and it's expensive driving balls into the woods all the time, right? So if you can get everything aligned, and it's always better. So thank you very much, Tom. We really appreciate your time today, and we will see you soon. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Ciao. Bye, guys.